Hello everyone, this is Calvin from Father-Son Chess Tandem, and today I have quite a treat for you all. I'm going to be bringing you a game from the legendary Bobby, aka Robert James Fischer. And this was a game that one of my dad's friends sent to him. And the context of this game is that there was a simultaneous exhibition in 1964 at the Pittsburgh Chess Club. And that is where this game was played. Bobby Fischer at the time was 21 years old, and his opponent, my dad's friend, his name is Emmett O'Hare, was 24 years old at the time when this game was played, so pretty similar in age. And at this point, Bobby had already been a grandmaster for approximately 6 years, so he was well versed in the chess community, well known, and he did not have much trouble dispatching Emmett in this game, and I'm going to take you through this just recently revealed to the public game. So, this is a study that I created on leechess.org, and it's called Fischer Simul 1964. So if you want to take a look after this video is over at that, you're more than welcome to do so. So without further ado, let's get into the game. So Fischer started with e4, and Emmett opted for the Sicilian with c5. Fischer played knight f3, and we got into an open Sicilian, which is the most popular choice among masters of both then and now. So we have an exchange of pawns on d4, followed by knight f6. This is all still the mainline theory. Knight c3 from Fischer. And now this is where we get our first slightly offbeat move, you could say, in g6. This is a dragon type move, but in a slightly different move order than would normally be played. Most games, when black player decides to enter the dragon variation, he'd begin with the move d6 on move 5. And part of the reason for that is going to be displayed in the upcoming moves. So g6 from Emmett, and Fischer decided to capture on c6. Emmett recaptures toward the center with the b pawn. And now Fischer wastes no time in making a provocative central move in e5. And this asks the knight already an uncomfortable question of where does it want to go? It's running short of squares. Its only two main options are h5 and g8, and neither of which look too attractive on first glance. Knight d5 is also a variation in which you sack a pawn, but against a grandmaster of Fischer's caliber, there's no way that you can claim that you have enough compensation to justify such a sacrifice. So in the game, Emmett decided to go knight g8, and Fischer played bishop to c4, which was the best move according to the computer, and a move that Fischer definitely loved to play in every one of his games. He's well known for playing bishop to c4 in a variety of positions. So Emmett, already in an uncomfortable position, not too clear how he's going to get developed here. The e5 pawn is just a huge thorn in black's side already. This game has been played approximately 100 games in the book at the master level, and white is doing very well in these positions, winning over 50% of the time with like 25% draws. So Emmett decides in this position to continue with d5. So he attacks the bishop and tries to claim some central space, but unfortunately for him, there's a legal move for white called en passant capture, which he performs here. And after Emmett recaptures with the e-pawn, you could definitely argue for a queen takes being the better choice there. You can already see that black is stuck with these two hanging pawns in the center, not supported by pawns behind them, kind of isolated on their own, and it's not a pleasant structure to be playing. And in addition to that, black has the 3 pawn islands, while white only has 2 pawn islands, so white definitely has a more intact structure. In addition, white already has 2 pieces developed, and black still has all his pieces stuck on the back rank. So this is already evaluated at +2 by Stockfish, and it's pretty evident as to why that is. So Fischer castles, just looking to cement his advantage in development, already posing some threats like rook e1 check at a convenient time. So Emmett tries d5 to strike in the center at the bishop and maybe create some more lines for his pieces to come out. But he perhaps overlooked the decisive knight takes d5. And when you have a lead in development and the open lines are toward your opponent's king, sometimes you can get away with such a sacrifice. Many masters have said that when you're on the attack, it's not about the value of the pieces, it's merely trying to trade attackers for defenders at some cases. And so but when you sacrifice, it's important to have concrete ideas behind it, of course. So what would happen if Emmett were to recapture with the pawn? From here, Fischer would have many options. One would be to play queen to d4 and create an attack on the rook on h8, which is really uncomfortable to meet, actually, for black already. A move like knight f6, perhaps, to block, and there's still already plenty of options. You could throw in bishop takes d5, because if the knight is pinned, so it cannot recapture, and if the queen recaptures, you could take the knight. In addition, you could simply play a move like bishop b5 check, and after block, rook e1 check, and then black is pretty much paralyzed at this point. Blocking with the bishop would hang the knight because of the pin, and there's just really no good way for black to proceed in this position. So, additionally, if black were to recapture, white could simply recapture the bishop right away, creating a threat on a8, and also threatening the neat bishop takes f7 check trick, which some of you might be familiar with, deflecting the king from the defense of the queen. And if you go king e7, there's just rook e1, so the king would be forced away from the queen's defense, and white would net a whole queen. So let's get back to the game. Emmett, instead of taking on d5, decided to play bishop e6, which is already a major concession, obviously. So Fischer just won a pawn for no compensation. In fact, he has the still far superior position. He plays the strongest move in the position, which is queen to d4. Again, asking the uncomfortable question of how are you going to deal with the threat on h8 of the rook? Blocking with the piece isn't an option because the knight on d5 is doing a good job of controlling the f6 square. So this forces Emmett to play the horrific looking f6. And this just completely shatters black's king safety, pawn structure integrity, developmental chances, anything you can imagine, basically. It's once you've played f6 on move 12, you're pretty much in a bad situation if you're playing an open Sicilian. So Fischer, rook e1, just piling up the pressure on e6, looking at the king, winning tempos. All these moves are just tempo-grabbing moves, which is how you want to play in the attack. King f7, pretty much forced. And then, bam, the finishing shot. Rook takes e6 from Fischer. And like I was saying before, it's not about the value of the pieces sometimes when you're on the attack. It's just about replacing or removing a defender with an attacker. And obviously, if he plays king takes, there's so many good moves. There's discoveries all over the place, and it's pretty brutal. So instead, Emmett decides to take the knight on d5. But this doesn't fare any better. Bishop takes d5, threatens the rook, threatens some nasty discoveries like rook to d6. So Emmett decides to try to hide the king, but there's going to be no hiding from this attack. Bishop e3 from Fischer. Obviously, he couldn't take the rook because his queen would have been en prise there. And there's really just no need for him to rush. What is black going to do? There's no counterplay available for him on the board anywhere. Rook c8, trying to get his rook out of the way of the bishop and maybe attack c2. Fischer just calmly defends with c4. He didn't need to do that, obviously. He could have played something more aggressive, but he's playing a simultaneous exhibition, so sometimes just practicality was on his mind because he was trying to play moves quickly and move to the other boards. So why not just make a simple consolidating move and continue on your merry way? Bishop c5, attacking the queen. Fischer retreats. And h5. There's really just nothing for black to do. The positional bind is immense at this point. Fischer just develops all his pieces and gets them contributing in some way to the attack, a la Morphy. h4, why not? I mean, there's nothing better to play. Maybe one Desperado-style kingside attack might throw Fischer off, but no. He forces the trade on e3, and now look at this triple battery down the e-file. There's just going to be no stopping that for black. And look at his knight and kingside rook just sadly out of play. Rook c7, rook e8, queen d7, and now Fischer decides queen e6 is good enough. And after the trade, here Emmett resigned. So, an incredible game from Fischer in a simultaneous exhibition, no less, where he's more or less making moves instantaneously upon seeing his opponent's previous moves. And what we can learn from this game, if we just quickly run back through it again, the main points come early on in the opening. G6, move order is important in the opening, and Fischer demonstrated why that is. So when you're playing a dragon setup, you need to start with d6 to control e5. So after this, Emmett was clearly on the back foot. It's never too great of a feeling to move a piece that you've developed back to its starting square so early on in the game. There are some openings, of course, where that's done, but this is not ideal. And then from here, there was just some nice attacking concepts from Fischer. Just kept developing his pieces, getting everyone to contribute, and went on to easily win the game. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's always cool to see new Bobby Fischer games that haven't previously surfaced into the public eye. And if you have enjoyed this video, please drop it a like, share it around, and check out the Lichess study that I created if you're interested in looking at this game further. Thank you.